Thanks everyone for joining me. We're doing another episode of Let's Talk Travel. So, some new tours, some new small tour operators. And I have Kathy, who's a avid traveler, here to ask questions as she would of any of these tours she might be interested in taking. So, go ahead and kick us off, Kathy.
Okay, well, let's go around the room and everybody introduce themselves by name and where you live and what tour you want to talk about primarily today. Let's start with April.
Yes, my name's April, and I'll be sharing about tours in autumn. That's my big season is autumn tours, and I'm joining from Las Vegas today.
Okay, Kristen.
Hi, yes, my name is Kristen. I'm from upstate New York, and I'm going to be talking about a wheelchair accessible South African safari tour.
Great. Elaine.
Hi, I'm Elaine Dixon. I'm physically in southern Alberta, Canada, but my head and my heart is in Morocco, where I organize tours. And today I'm going to be talking about our Morocco Mosaic Women's Tour, which we run in both April or in autumn and spring.
Okay, Edie.
Hi, I'm Edie Fenimore, and the name of the company is Spain Adventures. I would love to talk about the Camino, the Way of St. James. It's one of our favorite tours, walking trip that we do in Spain. And it's kind of fun to think that you can walk across Spain.
Okay. Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Gottfried from Calgary, Alberta. I run women's tours to Bali, Indonesia, and I've got 2 departures coming up in October and November of this year.
Okay, so can we go around in the same order as much as possible and tell us a little bit more about what trip you're talking about, what time of year, and where exactly you're going. So April?
Sure. My big focus has generally been fall photography trips in New England, and these are both for beginner photographers and more advanced photographers. But I am going to be exploring Scotland this fall. I have been once before, so I'm working with a photographer in Scotland and my past experience to share the joys of autumn, exploring the abbeys, the changing colors of the scenery, and the much lower light. With the shorter days of daylight, you have much more dramatic lighting, and just the fall, you've got some mist, you might have some clouds. Same with New England, you get these amazing colors that pop even more when you get a little bit of moisture.
Okay, great. Kirsten?
So the South Africa safari tour is going to be happening in September of 2024. We are going to be going to Cape Town first and exploring that area. We'll be going to Tabletop Mountain. We'll be going around the tip and going to Boulders Beach to see the penguins. We'll be doing a wine tasting, and then we're going to be heading off to Kruger National Park, and we're going to be spending 4 days there, doing some game drives, looking for the big 5, having some wonderful experiences before we head to a private game reserve, and this reserve is known for up-close animal encounters. They actually try to rehabilitate orphaned and injured animals to return them to the wilds, and they've done a lot of great work. So we get to do some game drives there as well.
Yeah, so do you fly from Cape Town to Kruger?
And so yeah, we'll be flying from Cape Town to Johannesburg one day, and then heading to Kruger from there. And the private game reserve is also in that area. So there's only one internal flight needed.
Okay, great. Thanks. Elaine?
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned, I'm presenting today about the Morocco Mosaic Women's Tour. So we assume on this tour that this is probably people's first and perhaps only trip to Morocco. So we do make sure that it includes all the signature highlights that you would expect So most people will probably arrive in Casablanca, and of course that has all kinds of memories associated with it. We visit Fez, we go to the desert, we visit the Roman ruins of Volubilis. Of course, we visit Marrakesh as well, and the coastal city of Essaouira. So we cover a lot of territory in 14 days and 13 nights. And along the way, you get to spend a night in a tent camp and ride a camel and do all those exciting things. And so we say it's a women's tour. It's really Morocco through the viewpoint of women in Morocco. So really, it's less about the actual itinerary or the route and much more about the various activities that we participate in along the way. I'll just say one final thing about the fall. It's a wonderful time to take this tour and to visit Morocco because in addition to the women-focused itinerary, it's also harvest season for a lot of things. And so there's an opportunity to visit things like a saffron farm owned by women and where all the harvesting of the saffron is done by women. So there's a few little special things that are seasonal because of the time of year of this tour.
Good. Edie?
Hi, yes, thanks. Yeah, the trip I wanted to talk about is the Camino, the Way of St. James. It's an 1100-year-old pilgrimage, and it's not always necessarily about religion. It's architecture, it's landscape. This particular trip starts in a little village called Sarria, and you cross over into Galicia, which is one of the regions that we get into. But the trip can start all the way at the foot of the French Pyrenees, and that takes 34 days. But we like to offer it in 15 days or in 10 days, which is what the last one is. And the fun part of that is that you actually get to walk across Spain. It's 60 miles, 100 kilometers across Spain. It's also autumn, and the colors are just so beautiful. It makes the landscape even more fun. But just the idea that you can walk across the country has always just been intriguing. Meet people from all over the world that take this journey, and it's supported by a vehicle. So if one day you don't feel like walking, well, then you don't. So that's always kind of fun to have in the back of your mind, knowing that if you're tired, you just don't want to walk that day, you don't have to. But the landscape is incredible. The food is incredible. It's also harvest season. We walk past some vineyards. Sometimes we are invited to participate in wine stomping and just be a participant rather than just a tourist. And that's what makes this trip very special. You really get to meet people and you get to see what the villages are like. And some of these villages are still being run, or actually the farms are being run just like they did 1,000 years ago, which is kind of interesting to watch. So yeah, it's a fun time of year to go. This one is in September, which is probably my favorite month to travel in Spain.
Okay. And Kathy?
Thank you for asking. So I am working on 2 fall groups this year, October the 22nd and then November the 5th. My tours in Bali, as I mentioned, are just for women. They are 14 nights as well, and we stay in 4 different locations. One of the reasons we move around is that I try and plan activities and sightseeing in each of those locations so we don't have as much driving to do. As you probably know, Bali is an island, so it's surrounded by beautiful beaches, but the interior of Bali is really, really beautiful. Lots of river gorges, mountains and volcanoes. And the thing that I love over there is all the rice terracing. So it's really the perfect place to take a group of women because it's got everything women like to do on a holiday. And for sure, one of the big highlights is Bali is just so visually pretty. So it's regardless of where we go, we're inland, we're on beaches. We do things that are very local experiences that you're hands-on, and you really get an idea of what Bali's all about, learning about their communities and their way of life. And of course, the people, that's the best part about Bali, is they're very welcoming and very happy that we've come to their island. They know we have lots of choices in the world, so they're very grateful that we've chosen to come to Bali and learn about them.
Great. Can people talk very briefly about the accommodations for your tour, April?
Yeah, sure. When we go to New England, it's part of being immersed in the whole stepping back in time, going to New England. We stay in a mix of historic properties. I always try to make sure we stay at a farmhouse where there's a beautiful barn on site. Often we use little bed and breakfasts, and the same holds true as I'm planning for Scotland. Is it'll be historic spots and locally owned family run places where maybe there's only 6 rooms and you wake up to the smell of breakfast being cooked and wander downstairs and really get to meet locals that are passionate about where they've lived, where they've grown up, and sharing what's around them.
Great. Kristen?
So as I said before, this is a wheelchair accessible tour. So all of the places we stay will have accessible rooms. When we're in Cape Town, we'll be staying either at a local lodge, hotel, or the company we're using has their own lodge and house that's fully adapted. And we will also, when we're in Kruger National Park, we'll be staying at 2 separate camps within the park, because it is quite a large national park, so we can see different areas. And both of those camps have accessible bungalows or housing that we use. So they'll be totally step-free. There'll be grab bars in the bathroom. There'll be roll-in showers and shower chairs, so that if you have balance issues, if you can't stand or weight bear, all of your needs will be taken care of. And this is the same for the private game reserve that we'll be visiting as well. So this tour is perfect if you are a full-time wheelchair user, if you are someone that just has limited mobility but needs some extra assistance, in the bathroom or, with taking care of your needs. All of that is going to be fully accessible.
Elaine?
Thank you. Well, we do know how important good food and a good bed is, either at the beginning of a travel day or at the end of one. So we do make sure that you're comfortable every minute of the day. Because we specialize in the authentic Morocco, we like to make sure that you're exposed to the culture as much as possible, even in your accommodations and meals. So when it comes to accommodations, we're really proud to take people to riads. And riads are the old traditional family mansions that have been renovated into basically small boutique hotels. They typically are about 3 stories high. There's almost never any windows to the outside street, but the rooms all open to the inside courtyard. And so there's always fresh air available too that way. The rooms are typically a combination of tile work and sometimes woodwork and beautiful stucco plaster work, and you just feel like you're living in a fairy tale most of the time. So much of the decor, of course, is at the whim of the owners, so you get quite a variety sometimes. Some are very modern, some are much more traditional, but the hosts are always welcoming and love to see you. I'll just make a small comment quickly about the tent camps. Of course, that is a departure from the traditional structure of the riads, but we do like to give you the opportunity to spend a night in a tent camp. Now, this is not camping, this is more like glamping. So although it's a canvas tent, it's a walled tent, and it has a hard floor with hotel style furniture, bedding, mattresses, and so on. They have hot and cold running water, private showers, and toilets. And so you're kept very comfortable there.
Do they have electricity in those camps?
Yes, they do. Mm-hmm.
As a CPAP user, I have to stay in a place where there's electricity.
That's right. Well, and we appreciate knowing that, because I will say that not all camps are created equal. And I have had the misfortune of being at one where when they shut the generators off at night, then of course there's no more power. And in that case, people were complaining about not being able to charge their phones, but obviously that would be a minor consideration compared to yours, where you need a health device to keep you going. So we'd need to know that in advance.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Edie?
Edie?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Our hotels are a variety. We like to stay in the country homes, the inns that are always run by families, sometimes even third generation family. And you come down in the morning and grandmother's been baking since 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's just very authentic. Some of the places we stay in are historical monuments that have been refurbished beautifully, painstakingly to mimic a time gone by. And these can be churches, or they can be castles, or they can be hospitals, but they've all been restored to bring you the beauty of the past. And then very small boutique hotels, all with ensuite, all very typical of the area that we stay in. And because we go across so many different little areas, little towns, each one is very different and very unique. They really provide an authentic experience.
Great. Kathy?
So with regards to hotels, I'll just first tell you that one of the unique things about Babes in Bali tours is we just do Bali. So I don't do tours to any other place in the world. And I'm really picky about my hotels because I know women do like, as Elaine mentioned, you need a good sleep. You want to be comfortable, you want nice bedding, you want a bathroom that works. You want to be able to open a door and sit out on a balcony or a terrace, and all of our hotels have that. One thing that's really unique about Bali is that you're not allowed to build any hotel properties taller than the tallest palm tree. So you don't get hotels more than 4 stories high. There was one built, it's probably 10 years ago now, in one of the main beach areas that they tried to sneak in like a rooftop clubby kind of place with a pool and like a beach club sort of scene. And anyways, the government made them take it down. So our hotels are boutique-like, they're smaller, very centrally located. And the other thing too with women is safety. So the one thing I love again about Bali is I can choose hotels that don't have big, long, dark hallways and elevators, so that when you're going to your room, you're not worried about any safety issues when you're getting there.
Great. Now let's talk, since so many women are shoppers, we talk about best souvenirs to bring back from your tours. April?
Sure. Well, for me, it's all about the food. So souvenirs for me generally are things like the maple syrup from Vermont, or picking up some of the smoked cheese. I mean, there's all kinds of cheeses in Vermont. New Hampshire, you might want to, I mean, even picking up a few leaves, you're not going to get stopped for picking up some leaves and pressing them into your notebook just to remind yourself of all the beautiful places you've been. But there's also a lot of fine art. I mean, there's a lot of little craftsmen that do pottery and paintings, but I say just taking something to taking pictures of all your memories, even your cell phone now. The cell phones have gotten so amazing, the colors they can get just by being at the right place at the right time, which is my goal, is to get you outside and just see all those beautiful things so you can print your own picture when you get home and hang it on your wall.
Yeah, I can testify to that, having gone with April to New England, and she and I got up every morning to see the sunrise and take pictures, and those are some of the best pictures I have from the trip.
Thank you.
Kristen.
So I'm like April and yourself. I love taking pictures, and I think in South Africa, you're going to have so many pictures of beautiful animals on your phone that'll make the perfect souvenir. Just you with the animals in their natural habitat. The sunrises, the sunsets are supposedly beautiful in Africa. And I really think that's going to be just creating some lasting memories. We will be going to some local markets our first day in Cape Town. So if you would like, some traditional souvenirs, we will have that opportunity as well. I know there's a lot of, mask making and different ethnic art that you can purchase in the local markets. But I really think the best souvenir is going to be all the photos that you can take and maybe make into a photo book, or make into, something else that you would use once you get home with some of the different programs and services out there that allow you to do that.
Yeah, when I went to South Africa, I took tons of photos, but I wish I'd had room in my suitcase to bring back one of the carved ostrich eggs.
Mm.
There's a lot of beautiful ones and they're not expensive, but I just didn't have, I mean, they're this big, so you have to have room in your suitcase for that. Elaine?
Well, I could talk for an hour just on things to bring back. Morocco is a shopping paradise. And yes, you are going to take endless photographs because there's a marvelous jaw-dropping vista around every single curve in that country, I swear. But you'll come home with hard goods too, let me tell you. If I were able to just pull the camera out just a little bit, you would see that I am literally surrounded by things that I have brought back from Morocco over my 15 trips. And 15 trips is only since 2013. So I'll tell you, you think you're not going to buy a carpet? You will. And so you come armed with measurements from your rooms and with color swatches from paint and fabric if you want, because you'll be sorry if you don't. And all those things that China has some supposedly perfected through mechanization, they're still made by hand in Morocco. Pottery, ceramics, those things are made by hand. And they're painted and decorated by hand, and you'll cherish them because you will have been able to watch the person make the thing that you have brought home. In fact, I have a little one right here. So this is an example of a hand-painted tagine from Fez. And don't get me started telling you how many of these you can fit into a suitcase because you'd be surprised. Really, jewelry, handcrafts, woodwork, leather goods, slippers, and many of these things are, beautifully made, but also not that expensive. So if you're looking for gifts to bring back for other people as well, honestly, you'll be bringing back things that people will cherish because they're handmade and they're exquisite.
How about spices?
Yes, I'm glad you reminded me about spices. The route of the tour that I'm talking about today takes you down after the desert through a city called Ouarzazate on your way to Marrakesh. And Ouarzazate is the center of the spice growing region in Morocco. So it's a fabulous place to buy things like saffron and red peppers and paprika and ginger and everything, turmeric, cumin. I could go on and on. So yes, those are all things that because they're dried, even though they're food, you can bring them back into North America and there's no problem with customs.
Right. Edie?
My list is long too, just like Elaine's. There's just no end in what you can put in your suitcase coming back. I always caution people, bring an extra suitcase because the olive oil, the saffron, the handmade crafts, the lace is absolutely gorgeous. And all of these things are handmade, just crocheted and just intricately designed. The leathers are amazing. Made to order shoes. Can you imagine shoes made of leather that just fit your feet like little gloves? The wines, you can bring back up to 6 bottles of wine. 2 of them can be cordials, which are wonderful, made from an array of plums or raisins or cherries, whatever. The only thing you can't bring back from Spain is meat. There's a very strict policy about that. But as far as the artisanry, silver is absolutely gorgeous in Spain and very reasonably priced and also just all handmade. Again, it sounded like Elaine's list.
How about cheese from Spain? I know there can be a problem bringing cheese back from France. Is there also a problem from Spain?
Not at all, as long as it's cryopacked. What you can't bring is something wrapped up in paper or anything. As long as it's in plastic, you're fine. And the wine as well. The only thing that isn't allowed into the country or out of the country is ham.
Okay. Kathy?
Well, I'm going to be repeating what everybody else has said. I think one thing that's really beautiful about Bali is that every child learns some form of art as a young person. So it could be dance, it could be wood carvings, it could be painting, but the whole island is like a big art colony. And I always tell people when they're going to Bali, you'll find things there that you would find at like a Pier 1 in North America. A lot of the items that we get here are from Indonesia, and so you're going to find them from the source. They have beautiful beaded baskets and paintings, of course, wood carvings and pottery, but it really is like so much less expensive than what you would pay for it here. And they've got beautiful art markets that you can go, and of course you have to feel comfortable bargaining because that's how they usually set their prices. But they're really a fraction of what you would pay for them here. I know I always say to ladies that are on my trips, like, art is the biggest bang for your buck that you're going to get there. And so quite often my clients will come home with paintings. That's one of the really good deals, and beautiful paintings, and they'll roll them up and put them in a tube for you. So typically you can carry them on the plane. But even things like spices too, they grow a lot of their own spices in Bali. In the last probably 5 years, I've had a lot of women bringing back vanilla beans, and because it's so expensive here now. And again, same thing, you can bring the spices back into North America.
Great. Can you address any special health concerns? For example, things like immunizations or prophylactic medications that you need to take in the area, or that might be recommended. April, I don't
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can't really think of anything like that for, New England or even really probably Scotland. I think just mainly if you have seasonal allergies, you might just want to bring something on your own for that. Sometimes I know people are concerned about sleeping, but generally, that's more from excitement of knowing, thinking about waking up the next day and what you might see. But, other than that, no, it's pretty. And even for walking, I mean, most of my trips are usually very, very accessible. There's not as much walking as probably most people would like. So,
Kristen?
So when we are in Kruger National Park, that is technically in the malaria zone. So you will need to take some prophylactic medication, or you don't need to, but it's highly recommended that you take some because there are mosquitoes. Wearing long sleeve clothes, pants that are lightweight will help with that too. Make sure to bring some bug spray to help ward off the mosquitoes as much as possible. So that's the biggest one. I'm not sure of any vaccines off the top of my head, but you'll definitely want to check the CDC website. Sometimes they recommend like a yellow fever vaccination and things like that. The other thing that some people are worried about, because we are in a different country with a different water system, even though the water is very drinkable where we're going, and there's always the option of bottled water if that's something you're more comfortable with. Sometimes your stomach can not always adjust to water that has different minerals in it or things like that. So you may want to bring some medication just in case your stomach becomes upset, or choose to buy bottled water.
Great, thank you. Yes, I did take malaria prophylaxis both in Kruger and when we went to Eswatini. Does your trip include that?
Kruger, yes. Eswatini, I'm not sure. I don't remember the name of the private reserve, but that doesn't ring a bell to me. So I know we will definitely be in Kruger, though, which is in the malaria zone.
Well, Eswatini is the country that used to be called Swaziland. And it's completely surrounded by South Africa. An interesting place to visit, but very poor people. Elaine?
Yeah, thank you. No, there's nothing special recommended for Morocco. It's far too dry for most things, including the malaria mosquito. There are still mosquitoes, so I would recommend that you bring a bug spray or something like that, because if you're sitting out in the garden or terrace at night, then you might have some mosquitoes. But nothing that would be of a concern in terms of giving you an illness. Similarly, there's no concerns for yellow fever or any of the typical tropical diseases. My sense is that if you're listening to this and you're a traveler of the world, you probably have all the vaccines that you would ever need, and more than you would need for Morocco. So you should be fine. Morocco does still have tuberculosis, but mostly among the very poor. And the chances of you spending any amount of time with people where you might pick it up would be so tiny. Similarly, a rabies vaccination is recommended for Morocco. I don't personally have it. I'm not a medical professional, so I can't give medical advice. But my view is that on our tours, your chances of ever coming in contact with a rabid animal are very, very small. You're just not in the areas where stray animals, except for cats and the cafes, are running about. So really, it's a personal decision, but I don't personally have that one. Otherwise, I would echo Kristen's comments. Well, in this regard, with regard to water, you must drink bottled water in Morocco. The water is possibly safe in the big cities like Fez and Marrakesh, but probably only if you are relatively used to it. So even local people in Morocco drink bottled water, and so it's necessary that travelers with us do so as well. It is safe for brushing your teeth, but not for continuous consumption.
Okay. Edie?
No special requirements for entering Spain, just like most of the other European countries. No vaccines or anything like that. The water is perfectly safe to drink wherever you go. All very natural streams, and of course, bottled water is always available, but it's not necessary. I do recommend that when you travel, that you make a list of some of the prescriptions that you might need to take for your own personal needs. And that just facilitates us going into any pharmacy and getting whatever you might need. But that's it. It's just a personal thing. And otherwise, nothing is required for Spain.
Okay. Kathy?
So you don't need anything special to get into Indonesia, although they are still requiring a COVID vaccination. However, they haven't been checking that recently, but I'm still saying, look at the government website because that's what it's saying. Bali is very hot and tropical and quite humid. So as some of the other ladies have said, make sure that you're drinking lots of water. You do need to drink bottled water in Bali, but it is easy to get dehydrated, especially when it's really humid out. And the other things that I would recommend is a good sunscreen because you're very close to the equator. I know I get lots of clients from North America that say, oh yeah, like I never have to use sunscreen at home. I'm sure I don't here. Well, you probably do there because you're just so close to the equator. Also, a really good mosquito repellent is important. Mostly sunrise, sunset is when you get the mosquitoes out, but they're not a problem, but I just always recommend a good sunscreen. And another just general travel tip, and I think in the last few years, we've all been using a lot more hand sanitizer, but one of the problems with traveling is you're touching money a lot, and money tends to carry germs. So I'm always telling my clients, if you don't have the hand sanitizer, make sure you're washing your hands with soap and water. That's the best thing to do. But if you don't have that, for sure, use a hand sanitizer, especially if you've been touching the money.
Okay. Can you talk about transportation and how many people go on each of your tours? What's your maximum number? April?
Yeah, most of my groups are just 6 to 8, 8 probably being the largest size group I would ever travel with. I just like to keep us all in one vehicle, especially when you're making changes. We're outside a lot, and if it's pouring rain and we change up the plan, if you've got multiple vehicles, it gets just too scattered. Whereas if you just have one vehicle and you see something amazing, you can easily pull off and hop out and take some photos. And as well, my plan for Scotland would be the same thing, 6 to 8 max, just to keep it, in smaller groups, more opportunities arrive. It's just easier to go from place to place, and it allows us to stay in smaller accommodations as well.
Okay. Kristen?
So my tour is going to be about 12 to 14 people. I'm trying to keep it closer to 12. And we use fully adapted vehicles. So because it's a wheelchair accessible trip, we have a lift equipped van so you can stay right in your wheelchair as we travel. There are also regular seats. So if you're traveling with a friend, or a family member that is not disabled, they have places to sit. Or if you're just, a slow walker and, not necessarily a wheelchair user, you'll have seating as well. So those vehicles will be used for the tours, for picking up at the airport, things like that. And then when we're doing the game drives, they actually have an adapted game drive vehicle within Kruger National Park. So again, there's a ramp to get you in. There are tie downs and in places so that you're secure and stay in your wheelchair. The private game reserve is not an adapted vehicle because we have to use their own vehicle that they have, but staff will help you transfer into that vehicle. So you, if you can't, transfer on your own, you have assistance. They also have additional straps and equipment. So if you have a hard time holding yourself up due to trunk weakness or balance issues, that'll give you a little extra support within that vehicle so you can still enjoy the game drives.
That's great. I didn't know that about Kruger. When I was there, I didn't see a accessible vehicle, and boy, you had to be an acrobat to climb into their vehicles.
Yeah, they're quite high up. So I'm not sure if it's a vehicle owned by Kruger, if it's the company that we're using, or a collaboration between the two, but I do know that it is accessible and can accommodate wheelchair users.
That's great. Elaine?
Yes, our groups are limited to 6 to 8 people, as are April's. So when we do custom tours, of course, we can do groups of any size, but for the ones that are posted as group tours, our maximums are 6 to 8. And for all the same reasons, so that if we see something amazing, it's quick to pull over to the road or by the side of the road and hop out and, take pictures whenever someone wants to. We're flexible, and that's what the trip is all about, is to facilitate people enjoying themselves and taking advantage of what there is to see and do. For smaller groups, we use our own vehicle, which is a Toyota Prado Land Cruiser 4x4, so it's comfortable and air conditioned for everyone traveling. If we get larger groups, like by the time we get to 8 people, then we switch to an 8-passenger van, also air conditioned and very comfortable. So the whole, effort is to make sure that everyone participates. Like, part of the joy of it, of course, is sharing with people traveling with you, which you can't do if you're in multiple vehicles. And so we like to keep everyone together also.
Okay. Edie?
Maximum is 12 people on every tour. However, because it's active travel, we really like to keep 2 vans on the road at every moment. Someone that doesn't want to ride, the van has to leave the area, and we need to have a vehicle. We like to have a vehicle because it is active sports stuff, and you don't want to keep one vehicle stationary and the other one gone. In other words, having 2 vehicles offers us the flexibility of comfort. Number one, they're 8-passenger vans and they're Mercedes Vitos, but they need to be comfortable. 6 people in a van, 8 people in a van is a lot. So for us, we like to do 6 people maximum in each van. So 12 is the max, and one is always on the road and the other one is back and forth sweeping, which means that wherever you are, we're not far behind. So that's why it's 12 and 2 vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone gets too tired, can they get on the vehicle and go to the next accommodation?
Exactly. And then there's still always a vehicle on the road.
Okay, that's great. I have a friend who's done the Camino four times.
Oh, I have a client right now who is doing his 7th Camino.
Wow.
It took him 3 trips to do his first Camino because he started at the foot of the Pyrenees and he couldn't have 34 days together. So he did them in chunks. Then he did the started with the French Camino, and then he's doing the Portuguese Camino. He did the northern route. He did the Silva route. This is his 7th trip.
Great.
My friend did it by herself in 6 weeks on the French Camino.
So she did it from 6 weeks. So she started at the foot of the Pyrenees.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
She stayed and she set a goal for 18 miles a day.
And she stayed in the hostels,
Yeah.
in the albergues.
She
Yeah.
stayed in hostels except for one place she decided to splurge and stay in a hotel.
Yeah. Yeah, those places they tend to be overcrowded. It's great for the kids. It's great for students. They just love it. They get to meet all kinds of people and people from all over the world, and it's wonderful. But they tend to be crowded, and taking a shower is sometimes a chore. But you have to do it once, I think.
She met a lot of nice people, except for the first night when she had her hiking poles stolen.
Oh, that's too
Oh.
bad.
Fortunately, there was a shop nearby where she could buy some more.
Mm.
Kathy.
So in Bali, we use our own, I'm going to say coach. That's one of the terms we use in the travel industry. And because I'm a travel agent, I use the word coach. Our groups are usually 10 to 15 people. So we have our own private coach. We have the same driver the whole 2 weeks. And I also have, of course, I go on each tour, so I'm with everybody. And then I also have local licensed tour guides, mostly one, but if there's a specific area we're going to, I may hire another one as well. One day though, when you're talking about transportation, I rent old Volkswagen convertibles, and they're called the Thing. I don't know if anybody remembers from Disney movies back in the 60s, they were kind of those boxy metal looking vehicles, and they actually have a Thing club in Bali. There's about 150 the Thing cars, and every single one of them is privately owned, but they all have their own driver. So it could be the owner or it could be a driver. So I've been doing the VW convertible day since 2010, and it's always really lots of fun, and they're very brightly colored, and everybody always says afterwards that they feel like they were in a parade, because you don't drive very fast in Bali. They have no freeways or big highways, so we're going through small villages and everybody's waving and yelling hello, so that's really a fun thing to do.
Okay, so let's go around the room and tell people your website or where people can get more information about each of your trips. April?
Yes, sir. They can find me at yourphototravelguide.com, or the shorter version is just fallphototrips.com.
Okay. Kristen?
You can get more information on my website, worldonwheelsblog.com, or you can email at worldonwheelsblog@gmail.com.
Okay. Elaine?
Mhm. You can visit us at www.cometothesahara.com. No underscores or hyphens or anything, just all together, cometothesahara.com. And my email is elaine@cometothesahara.com. So you can find us on our website and contact me directly if you have questions about the tours.
Edie?
Our website is spainadventures.com, and the phone number also, I don't know whether anyone likes to call, but there's always someone in the office to answer a question, is 772-564-0330. And my direct email is specialist@spainadventures.
Right. And Kathy?
My email address is very simple. It's just babesinbali.com. And I also have a Facebook page, which is also babesinbali.com. And all of my contact information is in both of those areas.
Great.
Well, great. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Kathy, for being our guest traveler and asking us some wonderful questions. And thank you, ladies, for joining. And hope everyone will join our next Let's Talk Travel live session, where you can get in a Zoom room and talk with many different tour operators. To find those, just go to the website, which is the-travelcollective.com. And we'll put all of the contact information, as always, in the show notes if you're listening on our podcast or following on our YouTube channel. So thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
April.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.